Test 1, 2. 1, 2. All right, good morning, folks. It looks like we might be live. If you were one of the 2811, wow, that was fast, viewers, good morning. Please let me know if you can see me okay and hear me okay. Good morning. Doug, Goldie, Tina, good morning, Tina. Long time no see. Maybe you were on the last live stream. I don't remember. All right, looks like we got about 13 live folks on. Hey, Mr. Craig, how are you? Says I sound and am looking good. Charmaine from A Girl and a Gun. Is that Bastrop, Texas? Good morning. Hello, William Luttrell. Tony. John is on. Hello in Oklahoma. 20 live viewers. All right, looks like we're jumping right into it and rocking and rolling this morning. We're going to do a little bit of a live stream on low light live stream. Low light live stream. That's like a tongue tire. And today's going to be kind of a flexible session. I want to talk to you real briefly about gear. I'm going to start out with weapon-mounted lights, and then we're going to talk about some other subjects. But before we do that, hey, good morning. Welcome to the live stream. My name is Mike Seeklander. Of course, I'm going to be your host and your tour guide this morning. This fine, crisp winter day. It's about, I don't know what it is, 20-some, 30-some degrees outside, nice and crisp. We had a bunch of rain, so it's beautiful out this morning. If you haven't done so, please click the like button. Just like this Facebook Live. Just click like or love or whatever the icon is. And Facebook will typically see that and start sharing that with other people. You can also share it to some groups you're members of. As you all know, I ask you to share every single time we get on. Before we get going, we got to cover safety. Of course, safety is everything in terms of firearms instruction. So please, if you're going to follow along and do some of these drills with me or some of the movements with me, I'm just going to do some very simple dry fire stuff. We'll talk about the one-handed eye index technique. In the next live stream that I'll do next week, we'll get a little bit more into the search process in the live, in the low light continuum, right? Low light continuum, big words. But if you're going to do this, you have to have unloaded firearms. So please check your firearms, make sure they're unloaded. I do have one Glock 19, Wilson Combat Glock 19, converted to a cool fire trainer. You can see that red barrel. It can't be fired. It is unloaded and clear. I also have one of my beautiful Experiors. This is the EDC X9 Experior model. And this is unloaded and clear. I have both these guns with optical sights on them, so we could talk about optics in relation to low light. This is unloaded and clear. So please do me a favor and check your firearms as well. If you have a firearm near you or a carry gun and you decide to watch this, that's fine. Just please don't handle the carry gun. If you're going to handle your gun and dry fire, make sure you have no live ammunition. Make sure you have a safe backstop and beyond. And that's for both live fire and dry fire. Remember, those 4 primary safety rules are applicable in real life. So, muzzle direction, trigger finger discipline, backstop and beyond, and make sure you understand exactly what the condition of your firearm is. It should be unloaded, but we always treat the guns as though they are loaded. You have to forgive me. I've got some sniffles this morning, just a little bit of a cold weather and allergies, no big deal. And who do we have here, man? IDPA is on the house as well as Chris Schmid. I think that might be the same person. Mr. Mike Staley, good morning. How are you? Mazukulu Kalo Kobala. I think I probably messed that up. If I did, I'm sorry. Richards Bay, South Africa. Good morning from South Africa. How are you, man? And Juicy from UC. Is it? I'm probably pronouncing that wrong too. I do that all the time. It's okay. I pronounce some things wrong. Finland and Florida. I bet we have coin members on. Doug Wilton is a coin member. Number 848. Troy is on. Outstanding. Of course, John is a coin member. If you're a coin member, go ahead and throw your coin member number in the comments. Say, I'm coin member number whatever. I want to see who the lowest number is. I'm sure we're going to have some old school folks that have pretty low numbers. Last but not least, before we get into it, if you have questions, please type them in the comments box. I'll see your questions. If I'm talking about something or teaching a technique, wait till I pause for a second, do my coffee break. I'm drinking out of my Jamaica coffee cup this morning. Before you throw that question up there, and then I will I'll see your question. But throw your questions up there. This is a Q&A session. We'll spend 30 to 45 minutes discussing these low light concepts, gear, techniques, or whatever else, and then go from there. Okay. I do have a hard stop in the back end, so I don't have a ton of time, but I've got plenty of time to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So I'd love to answer your questions as well, because this is a super important subject. Hey, Joey Russo's on. I think he's oh, you're viewing from hospital bed. Man, I hope you're doing well, man. I didn't know that. That's good. I'm glad to see you this morning, Mr. Joey Russo. Hope your wife is doing well as well. William from Texas. Good morning. Hey, Will Rhodes. How are you, sir? From Missouri, number 2269. And I think Joey Russo has the coin number by far, coin number 175. I think it's the lowest one I've seen on so far. That's pretty darn cool. Okay. So the first thing that I want to talk about in terms of low light, because this is more of a gear discussion, is the infamous weapon mounted light. And I have a couple different examples of some weapon mounted lights. I have a bunch of weapon mounted lights. I have products made by Surefire. I have products made by Streamlight. I have products made by pretty much every manufacturer out there that makes products. And one of the things I see all the time, it's kind of my pet peeve, I actually take screenshots of it, is the infamous, or maybe not famous, weapon mounted light on a really cool handgun on an Instagram post. We've got an optic and a comp and, lots of coolness with the handgun. And the weapon mounted light is as such, which means, is this a bad thing? No, not necessarily. And my point to you in terms of weapon mounted lights, because there is a weapon mounted light in every one of the firearms in the quick access safes, both in my office and in my bedroom. There's a quick access safe on my side of the bed. There's a quick access safe on my wife's side of the bed. I have one in my office. Oftentimes I'll be carrying my handgun in and around the house in the office, but I do have one in here in case I'll walk down here in the middle of the night to take the dogs out or whatever. I can access a firearm. But they are in quick access safes because I am a believer in, certainly in safety and security, keeping the guns locked up and safe. I have responsibility for them at all times. I'm not necessarily worried about my teenage kids, but I am worried about anybody else that might be in the home that decides they want to pick up a firearm that's laying around. So you got to make sure you control those. But my point to you on this is the weapon mounted light on the handgun is a serious tool, right? It allows us to activate the light and shoot and basically turn the night into a daylight condition. If you've never shot with a weapon mounted light and you have the ability to go to an indoor range, for example, or go to, like now in winter hours, an outdoor range and shoot in dark conditions, shooting with a weapon mounted light, a good weapon mounted light is basically like shooting in the daylight. Once you turn the light on, everything looks just like it does in the daytime, right? The problem I have with this oftentimes, and which is what I talk about on Instagram, is that this weapon mounted light does not have a grip activation switch, right? So a grip activation switch is as follows. Now this is a different variation. This is a Streamlight TLR2G, which means that not only is this weapon mounted light a light, it's a light and laser combination, but I want to show you the advantage of a grip activation switch, right? And this is a key point here. Now, this particular light made by Streamlight and Surefire has grip activation switches, and I think pretty much most of the major manufacturers have grip activated switches or grip activation switches, which means, this is a key point here, that you have a switch on the grip that you can activate with either hand. The problem I have with a weapon mounted light system and no grip activation switch is that leaves the end user to activate the light with their thumb oftentimes. And when I ask, for example, a shooter, when I see a weapon mounted light like this, I say, well, how are you going to activate the light when you shoot it? Well, I said, well, I'm going to activate it with my thumb like it's designed to be, right? And I'm like, well, that's perfectly fine. But what if this hand is occupied? What if you had to pick up your kid with this hand and you're carrying them, or this hand got beat up or broke or shot or cut, or you have this hand in a sling because you broke it in a skiing accident and you don't have this hand. So how are you going to activate the light then? And the answer often is, well, I'm going to go through the incredibly stressful process of realizing or searching, maybe, activating the light, and then realizing there's a threat. And now I'm going to have to try to activate this light as I present the handgun and fire my shots. Now, if you have a switch, for example, that allows you to flip to permanent on, which means I could take this switch and I can flip to permanent on, right? That's probably okay. But for example, if you're a lefty, so if I'm a lefty, right, and I don't have a grip activation switch, when I push this switch down, right? It doesn't stay on permanently. I would have to flip it up. The point is, if you have a weapon-mounted light and you plan on activating it with the other thumb or the other hand or your index finger, in my opinion, you're adding an unnecessary step when you could simply put a grip activation switch on the light. And then when you draw the handgun out of the holster and form your grip, the light comes on. Voila. If you're shooting with one hand and you grip the handgun, the light comes on. Bingo. If you have to switch hands because this hand is injured and you grip the handgun to fire it, the light comes on. So no matter what I do, right, close quarters, searching, the light is activated by my grip. All I've got to do is squeeze the grip and then I can fire the gun. It also helps me in my search process. So I may walk into a room and do a little bit of washing of the light into the room, right? And I know we're going to talk about the muzzle direction, et cetera, here in a second. But the point is, if you're going to put a weapon-mounted light on a handgun, I strongly suggest you put a grip activation switch on it. Now, some of you may be saying, and we'll get to some questions here in just a second. Well, Mike, is the grip activation switch going to mess up my grip? Like when I build the grip out of the holster, is it going to change my hand position to the point where I won't be able to shoot the gun as effectively? And I'm going to say no. If you do a little bit of training, or more importantly, you have this handgun set up in a manner where the grip activation switch is always there, and it's a high-quality grip activation switch, that's going to be your grip no matter what. You'll find that in the daytime when you draw the handgun out of the holster, right, you'll be activating the light, boom, boom, as you shoot the gun, right? That's not a problem. So no, it will not affect your grip. I've heard that from some agencies here and there, and to be honest with you, I think that's hogwash. It's not going to affect how you shoot the handgun. And by the way, something going on. Where this particular setup or weapon-mounted light is actually a light laser combination. If you look at the two different weapon-mounted lights, you can see one is a little bit bigger, right? And it's got a laser on the bottom. So it's got a light and a laser combination. This is a standard light. If I have the choice and I don't have to worry about holster or space, for example, this is a safe gun, so it's in a quick access safe. I certainly like the opportunity to have a light and a laser. It does a few things. Number one, it gives me a definitive laser point. So if the optic were to fail, I could utilize the laser. A laser tends to be a little bit easier to aim under stress for my family members. So when I present the gun out there, I can actually utilize the laser if I need to. And just a quick tip for you, when I'm zeroing or when I'm utilizing a laser, I will zero it in a manner where the barrel and the laser both travel pretty much to infinity at the same time, right? So I'm not going to have a bisection of the barrel and the laser when I do that. There's actually a short video on the members area. If you're a coin member, you can watch that and check out how to zero a laser, because I don't want to have to worry about different distances when I'm using a weapon-mounted light. Okay. So who else jumped on? Man, we got a bunch of people on this morning. 49 people. Do me a favor. Hey, take a sip of your coffee or tea, whatever you're drinking this morning, and click the share button. Click share. Click it to share it to your page. Share it to a group. Share it to something. Share it. Send a text message. Tell them, hey, we're live streaming right now. Mike Seeklander is on Facebook, on the IDPA page, on the Shooting Performance page, or the American Warrior Study page. You go to any one of those pages. Doesn't matter. Let's see if we can hit 100. I would love to have 100 live viewers on. Remember, we're talking about low light this morning. Let me see if I have any questions. A couple things here. Hey, by the way, good morning, Don from Northwest Montana. I bet it is colder in Northwest Montana than it is here right now. I hope you have great weather up there. I love that place. Mr. Joey Russo, to ensure the weapon light grip activation pressure switch interfaces well with your holster, 100%. So if you do decide to run a light with a grip activation switch, this particular portion of your firearm sometimes is indexed or is used for retention of your holster, meaning there's some things that happen inside the holster where this matters. So you absolutely want to make sure that you're going to utilize this in a manner that it fits in your holster and it works, it comes out of your holster, etc. Like I said, this particular setup, I mean, this is a Glock 19. Granted, I would probably have a Glock 17 with this weapon-mounted light. This is a safe gun. This might be a gun I might carry on duty in a duty holster. Probably too big for me to carry as a concealed carry handgun. I might go to a smaller variant of, like the Light Guard Pro. I think that's made by Crimson Trace. Streamlight also makes a small light laser combination. Streamlight makes some great lights, and I had some interface with Streamlight at SHOT Show years ago. And I told them, hey, for your micro lights, I want you to make grip activation switches, because I'm a big fan, as we've talked about in the last 10 minutes, of the grip activation switch. And their response was, Mike, the grip activation switch is something we think that only law enforcement operators should have, because it's complex and how you have to squeeze. And I said, that's exactly the opposite. That's totally wrong. Having to reach up and flip a lever or push a button or do things is much more complex under stress than just gripping the handgun, right? Think about that. When I want to shoot this handgun, I grip the handgun, boom, 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 and fire the handgun. That's all I do. Then I could do it with either hand. I could do it with my strong hand. I could do it with my support hand. I could do it with two hands. It doesn't matter. And I kind of poo-pooed on Streamlight for not following through and maybe thinking more about that. They were really wrong about that, in my opinion. And I don't have a particular relationship with any low light company. I'm not opposed to that. I just have these products, and they've given me some products, and I really like their products, but I think they were thinking wrong when they did that. Now, I'm going to give you another tip. And by the way, hey, Alan Kelly from Virginia, number 1571. You're getting on a little late there, Alan Kelly. What's up, man? Alan Kelly, did you not get up early enough this morning, buddy? Good morning, sir. How are you? Let's see what else I have. William says, Texas is open carry. What is your recommendation for correct outside the waistband holster to minimize a person from being able to try to grab your gun? I'm not a fan of open carry, William, and I'm not opposed to it in some aspects. For example, if I'm running around the woods in Texas with you, or we're hunting hogs, of course I would be open carrying. If I'm in Wyoming, up in the mountains hiking, I would be open carrying. But generally speaking, I'm still going to have probably a hidden or concealed gun, even if I'm wearing an outside the waistband holster, because I don't really want everybody around me to know I'm armed. I kind of like that advantage. But if you're going to be carrying, then I would carry with some sort of strong, no paddle holster, belt-mounted retention system. The SLS system from Safariland, they make a smaller carry version of an outside the waistband holster. The ALS system is a little bit bigger, but they both offer good retention. I would certainly, if I were wearing exposed and I didn't have to worry as much about concealing the handgun, I would carry probably with a retention type holster in that particular case. So look at the SLS or the ALS. I actually might have some holsters that I used to sell in my shop left over. So if you have a specific handgun model, drop me an email and we'll see what I have for that. Tony, I don't know about the grip activation not being allowed in certain departments. I don't know what the national trend is. I don't know that. It's a good question. I would tell you I'm going to do some research on that and get back to you, but I probably won't call a bunch of agencies and get back to you. So I'm going to be a bad instructor today. I don't know that. I think that if they thought the process through and they don't allow a grip activation switch, it may be what Mr. Joey Russo pointed out. It might be a relationship to the gear. It might be an issue where the holster doesn't accept the grip activated light. There was a group or individual I talked to at one point in time that had a problem or maybe an issue with grip activation switches, right? Which is this, by the way, if you're just jumping on, because they were afraid they would have a light AD. I'm certainly respectful of that, but I think for most civilians and law enforcement officers, that's not going to be a big deal because I think that, we're probably going to turn the light on more often than not, and we probably will have already had the light on and searching with it. Now, I meant to get to a tip. So here's a tip. For those of you that have a weapon-mounted light in your gun safe or whatever else, but you don't have a grip activation switch, where you can't put one on or you choose not to, here's my personal recommendation. So now I've got this Surefire light on. There's no grip activation switch. Granted, I have a lever on the right-hand side. I have a lever on the left-hand side. So if I were to grab this out of the safe, and there's some context within this a little bit, so you got to kind of bear with me, and then you can ask questions. If I grab this out of a safe versus me searching and activating with the thumb and trying to mess with the lever, high stress situation, I grab the gun out of the safe, which means I think there's someone in my home. I'm going to be searching and trying to find them. My first tip would be to turn the light switch on. Light switch is on. But if I had to get out of my yard, here's what I'm personally going to simply turn the light on, click, and then I'm going to leave it on. And then I'm going to leave that light on, and I'm going to wash the light, and the light's going to be on. And I know you're saying, well, Mike, if the light's on, you're exposed the entire time. I promise you, if there's someone hiding in your yard and you walk out there and you illuminate for a second, then you turn your light off, you can move to a different position, but they still probably know where you are. I don't think you can hide. Try it. Get a red gun, a safe red gun or SIRT type pistol, put a weapon on the light, have your family members hide in different positions, and test it. And what you're going to find is they're going to know where you are, even if you turn the light on and off and on and off. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't in some cases maybe leave it off to walk to the yard, go to position, take a second to listen, maybe assess and think, okay, there's really someone out here? I think there is someone out there. Then I might turn the light on and wash it in that direction. Now, let's address this as well. Is it good or bad to be searching with a weapon mounted light? And there are varying opinions out there, and there are some esteemed experts that will probably disagree with me on this, but here's my particular take. If I have a weapon mounted light, I'm going to use that light to wash into an area or a room or even the woods around my house to search, right? So I may take this light and I may walk into a room, right? And I may wash the light in the room and use that light to bounce on the floor and illuminate the room. Now, some of you may be saying, well, Mike, everywhere you point the light, your muzzle is going. And I understand that in certain cases, there may be some legal things I need to be aware of. But the point is, if I'm searching with the weapon mounted light, I have the gun out. The gun is out for a reason. The gun is out because the context requires me to believe that I might have to defend myself with my handgun. My fear and stress level is elevated to the point where I've grabbed a gun with the light in the darkness to search the area. I'm not as worried about the muzzle direction, or maybe someone saying, well, you brandished the weapon while I was in your home at me, or you brandished your weapon toward me while I was in your yard and on your property because I came out with a weapon mounted light on a firearm. Now, what I did say was I might keep the muzzle down in a position, or I may have the muzzle down like this where my hand could protect my head, and I'm washing the light into the room. Or if I needed to build the grip and shoot, I could build the grip and shoot, okay? I'm not necessarily a fan of having a weapon mounted light and then doing a lot of handheld searching. To me, that defeats the purpose of the weapon mounted light. In this case, I don't really need the weapon mounted light. I might as well take the light off the gun and then search and then shoot with what I call the one-handed eye index technique, which we're going to talk about in next week's live stream, right? So the tip for you is, and this might be good for those of you that have husbands or wives that are maybe a little less experienced, that have a weapon mounted light in the safe, but it doesn't have a grip activation switch, or you're not confident in that. When they grab their manual of arms, their protocol should be to grab that gun out of the safe, right? In a dark circumstance where it's dark and they got to use the light, and just turn the light on. Just turn it on and leave it on, right? And be aware that now they are exposed to threat. But the point is, I want to find the threat and engage or give commands. Hey, you, show me your hands. The point is, I want to use this light to find them, and I'm going to wash this light anywhere I need to. If I had to move, for example, in my case, from my upstairs to my downstairs, or in your case, maybe from your downstairs to your upstairs, right? That light on would allow me to search, and slice the pie and do different things. And I would be illuminating, because of the brightness of the light, everything in front of me, okay? Once again, I'm not saying that I'm pointing the gun at everything. The muzzle's going to be slightly down. I have a slight depressed position, or oftentimes I'll actually take the hand off the gun, and I may search here. I may come through a doorway, with my hands up like this. I may come to the doorway with my hand up, right? So I can defend my head. I can protect it. I can retain the handgun. Someone starts grabbing for that thing or swinging at me. I can solve that. Now, that's my opinion, right? I know there's some experts out there that probably disagree with that. But I've played with this a lot, like literally a lot. And I'll give you another tip here, and then we'll answer some questions. You really want to figure this stuff out and play with this. And let's say you own a Glock with a weapon mounted light. That's your safe gun. Okay, we'll talk about optics here in a second. Get a red gun. Get on Amazon right now, order one, or go get a SIRT pistol. Put your light on it. Turn all the lights off in the house. Put the gun in your weapon mounted safe. Tell a family member to go hide somewhere in the house, and then work your way through the process. Do it out in your yard. Do it with a weapon mounted light, right? See if you can find them and give them certain tasks. Like at one point in time, they're just going to be in a certain area. Tell them to try to hide from you, not to let you find them. and maybe in one case have them respond to verbal commands. Maybe in another case have them be in a position, for example, maybe as I enter this room, they're hiding here in the corner, and get one of those foam, baseball bats or whatever, and allow them to kind of swing it at you. You'll understand the utility of maybe going from this position in the doorway to this position as I come through it, where my vision is open, but I've got something up and around my head. So if something is swung toward my head, or a fist is swung toward my head, I have some defensive position here. I like this. There are some other variations that other folks use, but my point there is, play with this stuff. Just go through and use the techniques that we're talking about, and point the gun if you find a threat. You put your role player in the house with a blue gun or whatever. Point the gun if they're a threat, and make them do different things, and make them try to grab your gun. Once again, you'll see the utility of this, where you can retain the handgun, and you could strike, right? You can pummel. And by the way, the low light system, a good low light system should offer a few things beyond just shooting. A lot of folks, when they think low light or flashlight shooting, they just focus on the shooting position. But a good low light system will give you the ability to search, identify, defend the handgun and defend your head, as well as throw counter strikes if someone starts grabbing you and you end up in the fouled up tangle, and you got to fight physically for a second or two. And last but not least, of course, shoot with the handgun. So low light system, a good, low light continuum should offer all of those things. And that's why I do some of the things that I do. Let's see what else I have here. Any questions up here? Hey, good morning, Alex from Puerto Rico. Heiko from Germany. Good morning. Good morning. And Adele from Florida. Hi, Adele. How are you? You know what, Tony, as far as the Aaron Dean trial, I have not been following that. I would be interested in discussing that in the future. That sounds very interesting. Joey says, within context of home defense, Mike is on point. Yep. Absolutely. Hey, one more thing about that. If you're going to follow that tip of grabbing the quick access safe, turn the light on, and washing and searching, understand that one of the reasons I do that, and one of the reasons I'm confident with some of my family members, for example, my wife doing that, that's what I've trained her to do, is good trigger finger discipline. Like I'm taking one of my daughters to the range next week. I make my son, my daughter, everyone, I'm really adamant about trigger finger placement. When we're shooting, and some of you alumni will know the answer, we're touching the trigger, obviously. We're not shooting, we're touching the slide. We're shooting, we're touching the trigger. We're not shooting, we're touching the slide. So when we're searching with that light, that finger is always somewhere definitive. We're giving it something to do. It's never near the trigger guard, certainly never inside the trigger guard or on the trigger if we're searching. That's a huge no-no if the finger is in the wrong spot. So that trigger finger discipline is critical for the use of a weapon-mounted light system. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you're doing that. Okay. So in terms of gear, if you have a question about weapon-mounted light, please throw it up there. Mel Chang, top 3 light systems you've used, Mel. If you're talking about weapon-mounted light system, my 2 favorite large weapon-mounted light manufacturers are Surefire and Streamlight. I tend to have more of and more faith in the Streamlight with the grip-activated switch, because the Surefires that I had with the grip-activated switch were the old ones, and the switch wasn't a great switch. And I'm full disclosure, I love Surefire lights. Matter of fact, my daily carry light is a Surefire stiletto. This is the metal variation of what they call a stiletto. I absolutely love this light. It's a fantastic light. My daily carry light, I've struck things with it. I've done everything you can imagine. I carry it every single day of my life. I got another one in my truck. But I would go with the Streamlight Surefire if I could find a grip activation switch. And of course, I do have some Crimson Trace Light Guard Pros and light variants. They're smaller, they're lighter. When I carried a handgun with a light laser combination on the handgun back in the day, an MVP Pro, it was a Light Guard I think it was called a Light Guard Pro, which is the laser light combination. So there's the three that I would look at initially. I think they're the most pricey. I understand that. There are other manufacturers that make good lights. I just got a weapon light not long ago from a major manufacturer that makes good handheld lights. And I played with this weapon mounted light and actually got ready to bring it on, not this live stream, but a previous live stream. I went to activate it and the light didn't work. Light stopped working that fast. So these lights work. This light, every time I pulled it out of the safe, has worked. Every single time I've shot with it, it works. So there's you go. There's you go. Okay. So Gillett, in terms of the handheld, let's talk real briefly about the handheld. My daily carry is not this actual firearm, by the way. We showed this unloaded and clear earlier. Still unloaded and clear. But I do carry right now a compact 1911 because I shoot so many 1911s. When I carry that compact 1911, I don't have a light on it, right? My safe guns in my safe, my quick access safe, and my bedroom safes all have lights, lasers on them. My carry gun, it does not have a light laser. Just gets a little bit bigger. Back in the day, I couldn't find one for a 1911 that has a grip activation switch. So that's the reason. I carry a handheld light. So my handheld light system is very similar to what my weapon light system, but now I have to use the handheld light to search with, right? And we're going to, by the way, we're going to talk about the search process in detail next week. I don't have a lot of time this morning. I'm going to teach you what I call the one-handed eye index. We're going to go through the pros and cons next week on Wednesday. So meet me. Please don't miss that one because it's critical. We're going to go through the pros and cons of using a technique, for example, like the Harry's technique or the Rogers technique, where we have a modified grip, or a different variants of gripping the handgun and the light, and why we would use two hands, a two-handed light grip, and what the downsides to a two-handed grip are. For example, when the hands are together, it becomes much harder if you were doing a swinging in my head for me to get my hand up and in defensive position. Where if I have the handgun compressed, I can defend the handgun, right? I can throw a counter strike. I can defend my head, with a cage or half cage type position. I can illuminate and I can shoot, right? So I can do all those things with a one-handed position. We'll talk about that in detail next week. So I don't want to kind of steal my own thunder there. But since we're talking about gear, the main thing I wanted to cover was the weapon mounted light. I think they're incredibly valuable pieces of gear, but I strongly recommend that you buy one or put a grip activation switch on yours. I do recommend that you consider a light laser combination on your weapon mounted light. For handheld lights, I've carried everything from little Streamlight MicroStream. They make some rechargeable versions. I love these lights. They're fantastic. I've had great success with Streamlight handheld lights. This one has a momentary on feature and a permanent on feature. I like any kind of light that allows me to go momentary on, right? Or permanent on. In this case, the permanent on is not on the thumb button. If I'm just using it as a utility light, I just pull it out of my pocket and I press the button and I can adjust the intensity, which is what I like about this. By the way, this has some other features on it, some switches that I don't utilize. It's just on and off is how I'm going to use it for tactical or defense. So it's a good carry light. But we'll talk about that as well. So Mel says, Mel asks, do you experience light washout with mounted? That's a great point. And I almost forgot to bring that up. So in terms of gear, the last thing I want to talk about is basically the visual process of utilizing a handheld light in a technique where you're taking that light and maybe illuminating with what I call an eye index. This is my eye index, the Seeklander eye index technique. That's not right. I didn't name it. But I don't know if anybody else has called an eye index. Back in the day, we used to call this a cheek or a neck. I've heard that. I use an eye index, right? And the reason I have the light in this position, I'll show you the shadow, is if the light is too low, the shadow moves up and the shadow starts to cover the threat area, their hands. On an iron-sighted handgun, if the light is in the right place, in terms of the relationship of the light in your head, it will illuminate your iron sights very clearly, and the shadow drops down and gets out of the way. That's an important point. When you go low light shooting or go to the range next, play with that, and you'll see what I mean. But we do have to address in terms of Mel's question. When I have this optic on right now, I turn the light on and I still should be able to see the optic. Now the reason I can is because on this particular optic, I could set this to an auto feature with it senses. Can't talk well this morning. It senses the amount of light in the area, and then it would adjust the optic brighter or lower. So my strong recommendation with your optics, if you have one where you can adjust to an auto setting or a manual setting, is you adjust it to a manual setting and leave it at a certain setting. That way, when you take a light and you turn it on, whether that's a handheld light with the INX technique, right, or maybe a weapon-mounted light on the system, right, which is not quite as important because now the illumination is all forward. With a handheld light, it's back here on the screen of the light. But leave that on manual, and you'll typically find that you will have no problem. But it's something you need to test. You need to take your, if you're going to utilize a handheld light and you carry a gun with an optic, you need to go into a completely pitch black area and illuminate your light, back here on the optic, and see if you get any wash back from the optic, and make sure you can still see the dot just fine for that position. So that's a great question. So that's what I've experienced, and because my optics are all on manual settings, I don't have a problem with that at all. Okay. Doug is headed out to the range. Doug, Greg, have a great day at the range, man. John asks about lumens recommend for EDC. That's a great question as well. So in terms of lumens, that's another thing that I would disagree with some of the experts out there. Maybe I'm not an expert. Who knows? Probably not. This probably has 200 or 300. I don't know, maybe 300. It's extremely bright. So I can be on the upper deck of my home. I can illuminate the down yard kind of area, and it just washes the area bright and beautiful. And by the way, it's a very washy kind of light. Notice it doesn't have a super focused beam. Let me see if this is. So you can see that's a little bit more of a focused beam. That's a little more of a wash. I like a wash. I like the big, bright, brilliant wash. When I illuminate, it's washing the entire area versus a highly concentrated or focused beam, which is better for long-range use, yard use, field use, or whatever else. But I would say that 200 to 300 lumens is perfectly fine. A lot of folks are like, well, the brighter the better. I want the brightest light I can possibly have. And I'm going to tell you, test this again. Once again, you get your handheld light, turn the lights off in your house, and start searching. And if you get to a position where you're maybe searching the corner of a doorway and you illuminate, that wash, that brightness, when you have like a 500 lumen light, is so bright and so intense, or the brightness of the light in the room, it gives you that night blind spot in the center. So I'm thinking about 200 lumens, give or take 50 to 75 is about right. You don't need many more than that with these new modern lights, the LEDs. So I think you could over illuminate for an in-structure light. If it's outside, and I know I live in Montana, and I might have to illuminate 200 yards in my place, well, I might select a different light than I would in my home. But I think you can certainly select something with more lumens. Believe it or not, and people don't believe that until they try it at night, and then they, like these are all beige or white walls, and then I come in, and when your eyes are adjusted to the darkness, and you turn that light on, and it literally blinds you. So great question. Charmaine, what hand position will you use to shoot a steel match with a handheld light? Great question. Let's talk just quickly about competitive use. In IDPA, steel matches, or anything that I'm using low light, if the targets are a little easier to hit within my skill level, I'm still, because it's a little faster for me to draw and just use one hand, I'm going to one-hand it. That said, I know there's some targets out there that are a little bit more difficult where I want to use a two-handed. So my two-handed technique, and this is not the light I would use, but you can imagine what it would be. The light I will actually use is a short Streamlight ProTac 1, right? It's a short little guy, and I've got a washer around the center of it. I should have brought that on this live stream. I'll bring it next week, I promise. So get on. But I would take the light, I would activate it on the start signal, right? So I permanently activate it with my thumb, right? And I build my grip, and it looks just like this. So I'm building my grip. I'm paying attention to the fact that I'm not pushing the light into the mag release, right? But I do have enough of a grip where I don't have really awesome recoil control, but I have much better stability. Boom, 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 as I'm firing my shots. I'm also doing a little trick. I'm taking my thumb and I'm pushing down. Let me turn that off so you can see better. I'm pushing down on the light, so that keeps the light more in line with what I'm shooting at. So I would use a technique much like this. I can also reach down, sweep my vest, do a load if I needed to load, right? Because I can use these fingers. I can load the gun, rebuild the grip, boom, 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 boom. So I activate the light and then I'll leave it on. I don't squeeze it with my palm because if you miss and don't get quite as much pressure, you won't activate the light as successfully. So that's my cheater competition technique, right? That is not a good defensive technique. Well, for the record, we'll talk about that next week a little bit more because while I can shoot like this on harder shots, my hands are tied together. I wouldn't search like this. It's compressed. I can't defend my head. I can't shove someone away. For me to throw a strike, I have to take the hand off the handgun, right? I don't like this position necessarily. So I'm going to go back to a one-handed position for defensive purposes, right? And you're right, Brandon. I shouldn't have shown you that. I'm competing against Brandon. He's a good shooter, so I shouldn't have shown him that little trick. Just kidding. Frank says that IDPA Belton Gun Club is having a T2. Is that a level 2? Does that mean not T2, L2? Night match in March? Ooh. Frank Scalise, send me a text on that. I want to shoot that match if I can. Joe, you're probably right. A weapon, my light, flashlight, and red dot are almost all worthy of it. You're probably right. There's a lot of content here. Okay. Yep. Brandon and I agree. 200 to 300 lumen, splash and bounce. Absolutely. Good morning, Earl Yeager. How are you this morning? Good morning, sir. Tier 2. All right. Hey, I don't see any other questions. I answered your question, Charmaine. All right. I think I got them, folks, and I don't have a lot of time anyways. I'm trying to go to a class this morning and get beat up a little bit. So that's all I have. We discussed gear at length. We talked a lot about weapon-mounted lights. So if you just jumped on the tail end of this, rewind this and watch it. I think it's important, maybe critically important. And I'm going to leave you with this in terms of low light. By the way, next week we're doing another low light segment because there's a lot of information about a very simple subject. So put that on your calendar right now. Send a text to a buddy. Invite a buddy to the low light. Next week's low light show will be important because I'm going to cover the entire search process, why I use the one-handed technique, why I don't like two-handed techniques, except for a few circumstances, when I might use a two-handed technique. We'll also talk about striking, defending with the light, and some other subjects I think are really important. So if you see a buddy that carries a flashlight, invite your buddy and say, hey, go to this low light thing with Seeklander next week. It's free. It's live streaming on the Facebook pages, and hopefully they'll learn a thing or two. So anyways, we'll talk about that. Last but not least, here's your task. Get a red gun, get a SIRT pistol, get your light, get a volunteer family member, turn your lights off in your house, give them a set of rules. Hey, go hide. And, make them a foam baseball bat of some sort. Let them swing a baseball bat at you. Be careful. Don't hurt yourself. But practice searching and finding them and having to maybe do some weapon retention or maybe a shooting technique, right? Practice it with your handheld light if that's what you have. Or if you have a weapon mounted light, practice that as well. And then have them give you feedback. Have them tell you, Mike, this is what I saw. I saw the light from way back there, and that might have been a circumstance where you might have turned the light off in that case as you slice the pie for a minute. But you'll find those things out really quickly. The best way to learn this stuff and play with this stuff, the reasons why I've come to the conclusions that I have is because I did quite a bit of low light shooting and then I did a bunch of simulated searching. And that simulated searching taught me a ton. That you just can't theorize. Just get a light and a red gun, plastic gun, and search. Play with it and see what you learn. And there you go. Okay? That's all I have, folks. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. And until then, train hard.